Okay, good afternoon, going to evening. So I've been asked to share with us on building resilient directors through best ethical practices. That's a subject that we can discuss for a very long time, but I've been told I've 30 minutes. Let's see what we can do within that time. Because also I don't assume that we are not familiar with the issues that we'll be discussing. I think looking around the room, this is a very informed congregation. The whole issue of change, crisis, and what we call the VUCA environment is a reality. It was enhanced by the COVID-19 experience, but it has always been there. The world, especially that we are living in, is consistently changing. Even now, you cannot afford to rest on your laurels because things are constantly changing. The reality is that where there is chaos, if I would call it that, where things are changing very fast, things are moving very fast, provides great opportunity for unethical practices, because it is in that uncertainty that people who want to take advantage of systems, of structures, easily find a way of doing so. And so we have seen in the recent past, especially in government, but even in the private and corporate sector, where CEOs, board chairs, whole boards have been sent home. And when that happens, it tells you that things were not working well, either as a whole board. I always find it difficult when a whole board has to be sent home, because the question is, how can a whole board of 10 people, 8 people, 7 people, or whatever number that board is, could all have missed it? It means that there was a problem somewhere. How can we all as a board collude to do or engage in unethical practices? The whole matter settles or falls into leadership. And when I talk about leadership, I talk about all the board members. All of us in a board are leaders, and we're supposed to help provide direction to the organization so that we serve the interest of the organization, as we have been reminded this afternoon. And leadership is like a game of chess. It matters not how well you begin. It is not so much how well you play. It is all about how well you finish. And when we talk about ethical issues, let me say that a board cannot be ethical. It is the individuals that must be ethical. You can't talk about an ethical board. We talk about ethical individuals. And this is a choice that one has to make themselves. I make a choice to be an ethical person. Now, when you say unethical, there's AN and there's UN. So it is a bit tricky to know which one I'm saying. An ethical person, a person who is ethical. I think I should take it that way. It is a choice that you make yourself. Usually when I talk about ethical issues, I say that the decision whether you are going to drive through red lights at a traffic junction is not made when you reach there. That decision should have been made much earlier. It is not when you get to the red lights, then you decide, do I go through or do I stop? Because at that moment, there are many factors that will influence the decision that you make. And so if you are going, first of all, you could even cause an accident just by that indecision. Do I go, don't I go, And the lights are turning red or have already turned red. So if you decide you are going to go, the other people who are going green are already seen that you are slowing, so they imagine that you are going to stop. And then you decide you are going, and then you meet in the middle. In Kenya, even when it turns green, you have to be cautious, because the other person may decide that they are not going to stop. So if you are that one person who is going to jump the lights, I check and see the speed at which you are coming, most likely you are not going to stop. So I pause, even though it is my right to pass at that time. Just to give you hooligan, no, I'm a bishop, I shouldn't use such words. To give you chance to go, because you may be in a hurry, you may be a doctor like the ones we have talked about who is rushing to deal with a situation. But the point I'm making is that decision is not made at that point. I must have made my mind way before that I will never jump a traffic light. So that when I come to the red lights, then I stop. It's not a debate, it's not a discussion. I don't know whether you're getting the point. But if I have already decided that I will always go through the red lights, it doesn't matter. Even if the other person is coming fast, and I've seen those kinds of situations where you barely miss, because this person does not know that red lights exist. That's a decision they made long time ago. So ethical decisions are made way before that I am going to be I'm going to be a person who operates within ethical practices. That is a decision you make. So it is not when you get into the board as a director that you are now deciding, do I or don't I? It's a decision that I made long time ago, that I am going to be here in the interest of this organization. So whatever decisions that are going to be made in my presence, no matter how many people are of that opinion, if I consider that it is not ethical, then I'm not going to be part of it. It is a choice that I made long time ago. Ethical leadership is about making choices and decisions at a personal level, that I am going to live my life in this way. Because in leadership, there are many people who start. Just like in marathon, if those of you have gone to some of the marathons that happen here, I have gone to a few. It is thousands of people who go sometimes. Like the Stanchart Marathon, you find it's thousands, hundreds of people. And we all start equally, isn't it? But when the finish line is going later in the afternoon or late morning, it's only a few. Some of us go 1 mile, 1 kilometer, and we are done. And this is a 26-kilometer thing. I think I have done 10 kilometers once. I didn't go to win. I just went to run, And just finishing is good enough for me. So leadership is the same way. Many people start, several finish, but very few last. Some last, but few remain relevant. Some are relevant, but very few are significant. Some are significant, but few have impact. So if I'm going to be a leader of impact, there are certain decisions I make as an individual of the things I will do, the things I will say, the things I will think, and therefore will distinguish me from any other person. And so I am not therefore driven by the groupthink when I am in a board meeting, but I'm driven by that which I believe to be right, even if I'm the only one who is of that position. So in times of crisis, leaders are faced with enormous test of resilience. Resilience that is at a personal level. To what extent can I remain true to my beliefs? To what extent can I remain true to my values? To what extent can I remain true to the calling that I have to serve this organization? That is a test of my individual personal resilience at that level. And therefore, how you as a leader responds to this crisis situation depends on the foundational values and convictions upon which you have built your life. I have been not in too many boards, but I've been in a few. And there are situations where we need to make decisions, and you can see that we are either on the borderline or we are bending things so that we can make things happen. And it is in such moments when you as an individual must make up your mind whether you are going to be with the ayes or you are going to be with the nays. In good governance practice within boards, there is the best way of making decisions is always consensus. Good and best practice in boards is not voting, because voting has a tendency of dividing people. Those who are for and those who are against. So as a good chairman or leader of a board, you want to get to the place where people gain consensus. And if you have to vote, the noble practice is that once a vote is taken, then the majority have it, and you cannot go out there and say, for me, I didn't agree. You know? Because that is now a decision of the board, and it covers all of us. But in situations where you are very strongly opposed to what is being decided, in good governance, you are allowed to register your dissent so that you can say, please record that I did not agree with that decision. And in new governance practice, previously, you could not be taken to account for things that you decided while you're sitting in a board as a person. In new governance practice, you can and you are responsible as a person. And so if you feel that this decision is not going the way that you think is ethical, you can register your dissent. So that if things come to a head, it will be found that you are not part of that decision. That is a normal practice now that is acceptable. I'm not a guru in governance issues. I'm sure there are others here, but it's a practice that is acceptable. So you can actually register yourself and say, if that's how the rest of the members believe we should go, please register myself, register my name as a person who did not agree with that position. And it will be registered and minuted so that you are excluded from that decision. So how then do we as individuals build that kind of a position? Because one of the challenges in our VUCA environment is the real temptation for organization to overstate the qualities and values of their products and services, because you want to survive. Like we have been told by the team that were here. You are in a very competitive environment. You are not doing very well in terms of your bottom line, and you want to gain opportunity, get a piece of the little cake that is available. And so it is very possible for us to try and overstate our quality, overstate our values, overstate our products, overstate our services in a very unethical manner. And now this is brought to you as a board so that you can make a decision. This is what we want to do, this how, and this will bring us a good bottom line, isn't it? How do you respond to that as a board? Part of our responsibility is to make sure that such things don't happen. And therefore, as board members, we need to ensure that that doesn't happen. But the temptation is there to underpay and overwork employees. You know, when there's a crisis, when there's a VUCA situation that really affects your sector, the easiest thing is to lay off people. so that you reduce your workforce and reduce your salary budget and increase your bottom line. Where are these people going to go? What impact is it going to have on them, and things like that. Board members are called upon to make decisions on whether that should happen or not. To overlook or circumvent national and international standards of practice is another thing that sometimes comes to the board. If we do this, of course, it doesn't always come in a very straightforward manner, but as board members, you can sense that what we are being asked to do here may not be in line with the standards of practice that are there, even though it is going to add to make our bottom line better. What do you do as a board member who made a decision a long time ago, like I said, that you're not going to cross the red light? How do you organize yourself? Leadership resilience requires that we stay true to the cause. It's about building an enduring legacy of credibility. Remember that you can jump lights, but one of these days an accident is going to happen. And that's when you will realize that this thing of jumping lights is not a very good thing. There's a time in this country where when you put on a seat belt as a private in your car, people looked at you like you're very proud. Hata wewe unaweka hiyo kitu. It was a foreign thing, so it's only those people who want to show off that they have traveled around the world that come and put on seatbelts. And when the laws first came that it was being enforced that you have to put on seatbelt, so you try to put on a seatbelt and somebody asks you, but there's no police. Why are you putting on a seatbelt? Because we have not appreciated that putting on a seatbelt is actually for your sake. So when we put on seatbelts, it is not for the police. It is for who? For ourselves. We have seen across the globe big organizations that have collapsed because the decisions that boards made were such that they were unethical and they brought these organizations down. I happened to be in the US when companies like Enron, some of you may know the stories, very successful companies, but because of the shortcuts that they made them to collapse, literally collapse, and not just collapse, were also board members were taken to court, CEOs were taken to court because they made unethical decisions. The only way to survive those kinds of embarrassment is to stay course and be a credible leader. Credibility is a critical component of leadership. Credibility has a trust factor. It is a quality of being trusted and believed in. If you're a board member, if you're a director in an organization, and you have built that practice of never accepting things or decisions that are unethical, you begin to build credibility for yourself. I tell people that even thieves love trusted people. So that if we agree that if we get that loot, we are going to share it in this ratio, and one happens to run away with it, they will look for that person because they are not trustworthy. Isn't it? And you hear deal gone bad, they will go and kill one another because you are not trustworthy. We agreed. This is how we'll share. Even thieves want trustworthy thieves, colleagues. Isn't it? So when you are a credible person, your worth goes up. So for your own sake, build your credibility. Because the trust factor, you can be trusted, and people, when they are looking for people to sit in other boards and more senior positions and so on, they will tell you a testimony and they will say, so-and-so is a trustworthy person. So-and-so is a credible person. He is very difficult in making decisions, but he will make good decisions. Have you heard people say that? Because you have proved yourself over years that this is the kind of person you are. It has a social factor. Research has shown that people subconsciously judge the credibility of a person by looking at three things: competence, character, and caring. We will look at to what extent is this person competent in doing what is supposed to be done. But more importantly, their character. I've done short surveys over and over among people that we are working with. What is the one thing that is most important when you are looking for a leader? Without fail, it always, number one, always comes out as integrity. Integrity. So if we are going to be great directors in organizations, the whole thing of integrity, character is so important. It builds your name. It adds to your social capital. It adds value to who you are. And so those little shortcuts that we might make sometimes because the circumstances have forced us to, they actually undermine who you are. The third factor about credibility is a consistency factor. Credibility demands high commitment to consistent behavior. You cannot be declared credible. I cannot meet you today and say, this is a very credible person. I must work with him over time, observe over time, and come to the conclusion after observing over a period of time to say, this person is a credible person. I have observed them in this situation, and in this situation, and in that situation, and in that situation, and they are always consistent. So if you are going to be a great leader, a credible leader, then to me, that is the most difficult part of credibility and leadership. You have to do this consistently over time. You are principled in the standards that you hold for yourself. Whichever occasion you find yourself, in whichever place you find yourself, people know that so and so will not agree to this. This is why sometimes decisions are made outside where you are. So a meeting before the meeting is held. Why you are not there? Because they want to cut corners, Because they know that if so and so is there, this will not pass. Because I would rather have that than to be the one of the people who are recruited to go behind the tent to make unethical decisions. So you should be one of those people who are consistent. The other factor is the risk factor. Normally when it is time of crisis, normally when a decision is high stakes, the risk that is facing us as an organization and therefore as a board, the decision that we are going to take could land us in problems, or as they say, the higher the risk, the greater the returns. You are really taking a decision that is likely, if it fails, we will be in really bad shape. But if it succeeds, we will be really in good place. At that point, and I saw this, I happened to be serving in the board with the chair of this great institute for several years, so I must be careful what I say here. But there are times when we got into that situation where we are making a very risky decision. I can tell you as chair, I knew the people that I have to look at their faces very clearly. I knew the people whose words I needed to listen to very clearly. Why? Because these people are conscientious. These people do not flatter. If it is wrong, it is wrong. If they feel it is not the right direction, they will say so, and so on and so forth. At such moments, credibility becomes very important, because you want, if you are the chair, you want a member of your board who would rather disagree with you, but you know they are disagreeing on a very objective manner. When a person has proved themselves over time that they are credible people, when it's a time for making a risky decision, those people become very valuable. And therefore, it is important for me to be that person. That people can discuss, and you find that they are quiet, they are not saying anything. And we are about to make a decision, we are about to finalize this, and you'll hear, Brother Nelson, I haven't heard your voice. What are you thinking? Why? Because the word that they are going to say, the decision that they are going to give, the contribution they are going to make, will help us make a solid decision, because they have proved themselves over and over to be credible people in the board. And so the risk factor in credibility is so critical, especially in a VUCA environment. You want men and women in your team that can stand with you and make a decision that you know, even if we made a mistake, we will have made it having considered all factors. And we will have made that mistake on a solid ground. But if you have people who are on a yumba, you know, they want to please you, then it makes it very difficult to know whether you are making a good decision or you're making a wrong decision. I would rather have solid guys, few of them, than have a crowd who just say, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. That sounds like a very good idea. You know, I am with you, Chairman. I have had situations like that, and those guys can lead you into the ditch. It is after it has happened, you have gone into the ditch, then now they say, even me, I thought so. There's something I thought it was not going in the right. Why didn't you say it? Are we together? Why are you afraid of the chairman? Say it. Just because the crowd has moved in one direction does not mean that they are right. I have had situations where we are making a decision, and I do as I've said. I remember particularly there was one lady in our board at one point. She never talked much. In fact, sometimes I used to wonder, why was this one elected to our board? Because they never made any contribution. They will listen, and she would listen. With the time, I realized that this young woman was a very resourceful person and very insightful. So I discovered that before we finalize a decision, I would ask her, and you, what do you think? And not once, not twice, not 3 times. When she opened her mouth to speak, everybody had to accept that there's wisdom there. So she became a pillar in our decision making because of her very insightful, very analytical mind, not always with the crowd, but had become a credible member of the board. Some of us are very quick to talk. You know, before a motion is brought on the board, before the chairman has even finished raising the motion, Mr. Chairman, have you seen those people? And they have an idea on every point. Any motion that comes, they are the first one to talk. I'm not saying that everybody who does that is not good, but don't rely on those people all the time. There may be quiet members who have great depth, who have great insight, who are credible, who have no interest other than to see the organization move forward. Then there's the behavior factor. As a leader, your members will observe your conduct under different settings in order to consider you credible. Every positive act is credited to your investment, credibility investment account. Every negative act is debited from your account. It's like a bank account. You can build your investment of credibility to be very healthy, but one act can deplete that account very quickly. And there's just like in money, it's easy to withdraw. It's more difficult to deposit and to save. Many people don't know how to save. I'm one of them. It takes discipline to save, especially these days with digital. *22 something and Pesa Pap in your account, in your phone. And immediately you have paid it here and you have paid it there. One of the biggest problems in the Western world is a credit card. Because it is so easy, just stick the thing and money is paid. Credibility is the same. One little thing and it draws your whole savings over years. Have you heard of leaders who built their credibility, their names, their household name, and so on? Then you hear they have done this and that. And it is such a disappointment. Everybody's like, even the so-and-so. And people no longer remember the good things that you did. So the behavior factor means that I have to, in my own way, be consistent in my action and everything that I do. In corporate governance, I'm sure all of us here are familiar. Our biggest responsibility as board members and directors is the fiduciary duty. And it is the expectation that every one of us will act in the best interest of the organization on whose board we are sitting. Two main fiduciary duties: the duty of loyalty and the duty of care. Duty of loyalty particularly is a commitment to always act in the best interest of the organization. This therefore requires that members prioritize the organization interest, avoid personal agenda, declare conflict of interest, and promote organizational products, programs, and activities. We are seeing a trend in this country, particularly, where people seem to get into boards first and foremost for personal interest. I remember one occasion many years ago, and I won't give too much detail so you don't guess. I was nominated to get into this board. And being from a church background, as our brother Nelson will tell you, we don't pay board members. You come and serve for free. So these bahashas and books that you sign are not there. You pay your own fuel and you come at your own expense. If anything, we expect you to make a contribution. So that's the environment that I was coming from. So I was not used to this signing for sitting allowance and so on. So when I was nominated into this particular board, very critical, and my thinking was, this is my opportunity to give back to society. And I was going to persuade fellow colleagues that we do not draw any allowances. I thought we can serve society, we don't have to draw allowances. Shock of my shocks. In our first meeting, As we are being introduced to what this is all about and what is expected of us, the first question is, how much is the allowance? These are fellow members. At what point will it be paid? Because we have sat in some boards where it takes forever to pay allowances. And we took another 15, 20 minutes discussing allowances. So I was like, okay, this is a very different environment. And I'm thinking to myself, where is the interest of the organization? I'm not saying that getting allowances is bad. I'm actually getting one right now in the board I'm sitting in. So it is not a bad idea. But if that is what is driving me to get into a board, then I am no longer pursuing the interest of the organization, but I'm pursuing what I can get. I've seen situations where people come and sign and then they go their way. I have sat in meetings where people send others to sign for them. And you wonder, so why did you come? Because you are appointed to this board, you are appointed to this committee, you are brought into this environment because somebody thought you had some value to bring. But now you are only here for that which you can get. When we are doing business with the organizations that we are serving in clear breach of conflict of interest, a contract is being declared and a tendering is being done, and you go and tell or create even a company in good time, and now this matter is being discussed and you want to ensure that this so-and-so gets the tender. Where is the ethical practice in this? This is ethical failure. When you want your products from your company to be the ones that are being supplied and used in the organization, again, it's an ethical failure. And the list goes on. But I would say that that decision is not made on the spot. That decision is made way before you sit in that board, way before you get into that organization. It is a decision that you make early enough so that when you get there, you want to do your best to represent the organization and to pursue its interest. This is my closing remark. People may not like you. Some may even hate you. But if you are credible, they will respect you and they will even honor you. When you are taking those hard decisions, people may not necessarily like you, they may even hate you, but if you stand your ground consistently, they will respect you and they will honor you. Thank you very much. Asante sana.